"You will be my wife for one night," ordered the king to the maid, "and you will do everything I say. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from." The corridors of the Alcazar whispered that night. Lamps burned low, casting trembling shadows on the walls as servants exchanged hurried glances. Rumor had already run its course. Someone had dared to defy the king. Not a noble, not a guard, but a maid. Her name, they said, was Inés Morales. She was young, poor, and foolish enough to look the king in the eye when he passed. By the time the guards reached her in the linen chamber, she had already guessed why. She wiped her hands on her apron and straightened her back. "If His Majesty calls, I will come," she said quietly. The older women begged her to kneel, to cry, to plead ignorance. Inés shook her head. "A woman who bows without reason is already a shadow," she said, and followed the guards. The great hall waited like a mouth about to speak. King Fernando sat on the dais, his crown abandoned beside him. He was not a cruel man, but pride had made him distant, and power had taught him that no one refused the King of Spain. He had ruled since boyhood, buried brothers and children, and learned to believe that his will was God's reflection. When Inés entered, he noticed first that she did not lower her gaze. Her dress was coarse, her hair tied simply, but her bearing held something quiet and fierce. The courtiers shifted uneasily, as if her calm were a threat. "Are you the one they call Morales?" the king asked. "I am," she said. "You refused to kneel before my image during the feast of St. James?" "I did, Your Majesty." The court murmured like leaves in wind. Fernando raised a hand, and silence returned. "You do not kneel to your king?" "I kneel to God alone," she replied, her voice even. "I serve you with my hands, not my knees." He studied her. "You speak boldly for one who washes the linen of others." "I wash linen, not souls," she said, "and souls are not white because kings wish them so." A few nobles stifled gasps. The king's eyes darkened, but not with anger. Something else, something older. "Do you know what words like that can cost you?" "I do, sire, but a lie costs more." He stood then, descending the steps slowly, each footfall echoing across the stone. "Do you think I am unjust?" "I think you are a man," she said, "and men forget what it is to be hungry." Her words struck him like a blade. He had not heard truth spoken so plainly in years. The courtiers watched, expecting fury, punishment, exile. But Fernando felt the room closing in, the walls whispering his own arrogance back at him. He motioned to the guards. "Leave us." They hesitated. "Your Majesty—" "Leave us," he repeated, his tone sharp enough to cut. The hall emptied until only the two remained. He turned to her. "You will be my wife for one night," he said quietly, almost as if testing the sound of it. "And you will do everything I say." For the first time her face changed, neither fear nor shame, but surprise. "Your wife, Majesty." "Yes, if your pride is so high, let us see if it survives the weight of a crown." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but disbelief. "And after that night?" "You will return to the life you know," he answered, "and I will remember whether obedience can be taught." She lifted her chin. "You command me as if I were a lesson to be learned. Perhaps you are." He turned away, walking toward the great window that overlooked Madrid's roofs, the moon pale upon the tiles. "The palace has forgotten its heart," he murmured, half to himself. "Every man here bows and lies. Perhaps truth must be punished even when it wears the face of a maid." She spoke softly behind him. "Truth cannot be punished, Majesty, only ignored." He looked back at her. The flicker of the torchlight caught her face, and for a moment he saw not defiance but something far rarer. "Mercy. What is your name again?" he asked, though he already knew. "Inés Morales." "Inés," he repeated. "Do you know what it means to stand against a king?" "Yes." "It means to stand for something greater than fear." The words stayed between them like a vow. He approached her again, close enough to see the faint tremor of her breath. "You think me cruel?" "I think you are lonely," she said quietly. That pierced deeper than any insult. He drew back slightly, his voice sharper than he intended. "You know nothing of me. I know what eyes look like when they seek something they cannot name." The silence that followed was heavy. He could have struck her down for less, yet he found himself unable to speak. Her courage unsettled him, her presence strangely soothing. You are dismissed, he said finally. Until midnight. Midnight, Your Majesty. Yes, you will come to my chambers. Alone. She did not flinch. If that is your will. It is. He waited for her to plead, to beg for mercy, to show fear. She did none of it. She bowed her head, not in submission but in acknowledgement, and turned to leave. When the doors closed behind her, Fernando stood motionless. He felt no triumph. The echo of her voice lingered in his ears, soft yet unyielding. You are lonely. No one had ever spoken such words to him, not even his confessor. He returned to the throne and sat heavily. Around him, the gold and crimson of the hall seemed duller. A servant entered timidly to ask if the council meeting should be delayed. The king waved him away. Outside, the city slept. Inez walked the narrow corridor back to her quarters, past the sleeping guards and the murmuring of fountains. Each step was slow, measured, as though she were walking toward the edge of the world. In the small servants' dormitory, her friend Lucia rose from her cot. What did he do? She whispered. Nothing yet, Inez said. Lucia caught her hand. They say he has temper. They say he... Let them say what they wish. The night is not yet done. Lucia pressed a rosary into her palm. For protection. Inez closed her fingers around it. I will need courage more than protection. When Lucia fell asleep, Inez sat by the window watching the faint silver of the moon over the rooftops. She remembered her mother's voice from childhood, telling her that pride is the only cloak the poor may wear with dignity. She did not regret her words, though she wondered what awaited her. In the royal chambers, the king dismissed his attendants and sat before the mirror. His reflection looked older than he remembered, his eyes heavy with something unnamed. He tried to pray but could not form the words. Instead, he spoke aloud to the empty room. What have I done? The silence gave no answer. As the bells struck 11, he paced the chamber, his thoughts torn between anger and curiosity. He wanted to test her defiance, to see it bend, yet some part of him feared it would not. And what then? Would he despise her, or himself? When the clock neared midnight, he ordered the guards outside his door to wait in silence. If anyone approaches, let her pass unhindered, he said, but speak not a word. The guards exchanged uncertain glances, then bowed. Inez walked through the palace once more, guided only by the flickering torches. The corridors seemed endless, the marble cold beneath her shoes. When she reached the king's door, her hand hesitated for a breath before she knocked. Enter, his voice called. The room was vast but dim, the fire dying low. Fernando stood near the window, his crown nowhere in sight. You came, he said. I was commanded, she replied. He nodded. And do you obey because you must, or because you wish to know what kind of man gives such orders? Perhaps both, she said softly. He motioned toward the chair beside the hearth. Sit. I will stand, as you wish. For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of the fire filled the silence. Then Fernando said, Tell me, Inez Morales, do you believe kings are chosen by God? I believe God chooses men to test other men, she said. Whether that test is crown or cross depends on how they bear it. He almost smiled. You speak like a preacher. No, Majesty, like a servant who listens. He walked toward her slowly, his expression unreadable. You fear nothing, do you? I fear losing what little honor I have, she said. Fear beyond that is wasted breath. The king stopped before her. You think me proud? I think pride is a chain that binds both ruler and ruled, she answered. But at least I can still see mine. Her words hung in the air, sharp, yet tender. He felt the strange urge to laugh, to argue, to confess, anything but remain silent. You have spirit, he said at last. Perhaps too much. Would you rather I wept? He shook his head slowly. No. I have seen enough tears in my life. The fire crackled. A long moment passed between them, a moment that neither could name. Then Fernando spoke, voice low, almost weary. Inez, the world does not forgive women who speak as you do. Then the world is wrong, Majesty. Her calmness disarmed him again. He stepped back, turning away. Go now. Return before dawn. I thought you wished me to stay the night, she said quietly. I said midnight. The night is long yet. She studied him, trying to read the storm behind his face. If I return, Majesty, will it be as your servant? He looked at her then, and something human flickered in his eyes. I do not know, he said, perhaps as something neither servant nor sovereign can name. She inclined her head, the gesture not of obedience but understanding. Then I will come because I gave my word. He watched her leave, her steps soundless on the stone. When the door closed, the king released a breath he did not know he had been holding. For the first time in years he felt uncertain, of himself, of his power, of the night to come. The bells of midnight began to toll, deep and solemn, echoing through the corridors of the palace. Each stroke seemed to draw the air tighter, the silence heavier. Somewhere in the shadowed passage, a guard's voice murmured her name, announcing her approach. The king turned toward the door, his heart beating faster than pride would allow. She was coming. The chamber was still when Inez entered. The fire had nearly burned out, and the heavy curtains muffled the night sounds beyond the walls. The king stood with his back to her, staring at the dying embers as if they held the answer to some unspoken question. "You came," he said without turning. "I gave my word," she replied. He turned slowly, his face half in shadow. "Most people come when I command, not when they promise." "Then perhaps you are not used to promises," she said. His eyes flickered. "Promises break easier than commands. Only for those who give them lightly." Her calm unnerved him again. He gestured toward the table where 2 cups of wine waited. "Sit then, drink. It may warm the courage you pretend not to need." "I do not drink, Majesty, not even in the presence of a king, especially not then." He let out a faint breath that might have been amusement. "You are determined to deny me even the smallest obedience." "I obey the duties of my position," she said. "But this—" She looked around the chamber, then back at him. "This is not service, this is trial." He crossed to the table and poured the wine himself. "Then consider it a lesson in humility." "For whom?" she asked. He hesitated, glass in hand. "For both of us, perhaps." They stood in silence for a moment, the faint crackle of the fire the only sound between them. Then he asked, "Why did you not kneel before my image that day?" "I told you. I bow to God alone. That is a brave excuse." "It is not excuse," she said simply. "It is truth. If my soul kneels to a man, what will be left for heaven?" He studied her closely. "And if heaven itself placed me above you, then heaven would not have needed to remind you of it." The words struck him again with that strange mixture of offense and awe. "Do you never fear what your tongue may cost you?" "I fear only silence, Majesty. That is the true punishment of the poor." He turned away, restless. "You speak of poverty as if it grants wisdom. Perhaps it grants sight," she said softly. "Those who have nothing see everything." Her tone carried no reproach, but it unsettled him more than accusation could. He sat finally, setting the wine aside untouched. "You think me blind." "I think you were born into a world that blinds," she said. "Gold is a heavy curtain. Do you judge me then?" "No, Majesty. I pity you." The words, spoken gently, struck like a bell. He looked at her sharply. "You pity a king." "I pity any man who must hide behind fear to be obeyed." For a moment neither moved. The air between them felt charged, alive. He rose again, pacing. "Do you know what the court says of me?" "I know what they whisper of everyone," she answered. "They whisper because they cannot speak truth." He stopped before her, close enough for her to see the lines beneath his eyes. "And what truth would you speak to me if I allowed it?" "That a man who must order love will never know it." The silence that followed was deep. He stared at her as though seeing her for the first time. "Do you think that is what I intend tonight?" "I do not know, Majesty, but I know that power can mistake desire for right." He looked away again, his jaw tightening. "You have courage enough to shame my counsel." "I have nothing else," she said. He turned suddenly and crossed the room to the window, pulling the curtains wide. Moonlight spilled across the floor, pale and cold. "Come here," he said. She did not move. "I command it," he added. She walked forward slowly until the moonlight touched her face. "What do you see, Majesty?" He stared at her. "I see a woman who should fear me, and— Do you wish that?" "I do not know what I wish." The wind from the open window stirred her hair. The sound of distant bells carried faintly from the cathedral. Fernando's voice softened. "Do you hate me, Inez?" "No," she said. "I do not hate what I do not know." He searched her eyes, looking for deceit and finding none. "Then what do you see when you look at me?" "A man born into a cage so gilded he believes it is heaven." He flinched. And what of your own cage? I built mine with honesty. It is smaller, but I can breathe inside it. He stepped closer, his voice low. Tell me, Inés Morales, why should I not use my power to make you obey? Because obedience given through fear is worth nothing, she said, and you already have enough of nothing. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he laughed quietly, though there was no joy in the sound. You wound without blade. Then you bleed too easily, Majesty. He turned from her, walked back to the table, and poured a second glass. If I were any other man, I would strike you for that. If you were any other man, I would not have spoken. He froze, glass half raised. Something in her voice disarmed him utterly. He set the glass down untouched. You remind me of my wife, he said suddenly. She once told me truth was the only luxury we could not afford. Inés hesitated. She is gone. Years now, he said quietly. She died before she could teach me humility. I am sorry, Inés said. Loss teaches harshly, Majesty. He nodded slowly, his gaze unfocused. She would not have liked you. Then I would have liked her, she said. That unexpected gentleness broke through his defenses. He sat again, motioning her toward the chair opposite. Sit then, if not for me, then for her memory. After a moment's pause, she sat. He leaned forward. Tell me of your life. There is little to tell. My father was a carpenter, my mother a seamstress. Both gone now. I came to Madrid to serve because hunger is less cruel than pity, and yet you pity me, he murmured. Because your hunger is greater, she replied. He looked at her sharply. What do you mean? You hunger for meaning, for something no throne can give. He stared at her hands, folded neatly in her lap. And you think you can feed that hunger? No, but perhaps I can remind you what it is. The clock struck once, the sound hollow in the stillness. The king rose, restless again. You are dangerous, Inés Morales. I am a servant. No, he said. You are something I cannot name. He crossed the room once more, stopping behind her chair. Does your courage never falter? Every hour, she said quietly. But fear is a chain too, and I will not wear two. He stood there in silence, watching the firelight glint across her hair. Then he spoke softly. When I ordered you here, I thought to humble you. And now I wonder who is humbling whom. He returned to his chair. Tell me what you want of me, Inés. Nothing, she said. Only that you remember tonight not as command, but as mercy. Mercy, he echoed. For you, Majesty. You needed someone who would not kneel. He closed his eyes, the truth of it cutting deeper than he expected. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps I summoned you not out of anger, but out of hunger for honesty. Then tonight you have eaten well, she said. He smiled faintly, the first genuine smile she had seen on him. You have a sharp tongue for a maid. I have a mind for a woman, she replied. Their eyes met, and the air seemed to still again. Something fragile passed between them, respect perhaps, or the faintest spark of something neither dared name. You should go, he said finally, though his voice lacked conviction. Do you release me? For now. She rose. Then I will go. He watched her walk toward the door. Inés, he called softly. She paused. Yes, Majesty? If you had been born noble, would you have loved me? She turned slowly. If you had been born poor, perhaps I already would. He stood speechless as she left the chamber, the door closing gently behind her. The king remained alone until dawn, watching the pale light creep across the floor. When he finally turned toward his bed, something caught his eye, a small green sprig lying on his pillow. He lifted it. Rosemary. The scent filled the air, sharp and clean, unlike anything else in the room. He held it in his hand until the sun rose, wondering what it meant. When the servants entered later that morning, they found the king still seated by the window, crown untouched, eyes distant. By the time the first bell of the day rang, Inés was gone. But on the king's pillow, the rosemary still lay fresh, and its scent would not fade. The palace awoke to whispers that spread faster than the toll of the morning bells. Servants spoke in corners, maids in corridors, guards by the gates. They all said the same thing, that the king had spent the night with a maid, and that she had vanished before dawn. No one knew what had happened inside the royal chamber, but the lack of shouting, the calmness of the guards, the odd look in the king's eyes at breakfast, it all told a story that no one dared to finish aloud. King Fernando walked through the hall as if the air itself had turned heavy. His council followed in silence. He heard their murmurs, but spoke to none. Even the courtiers, skilled in flattery, could not read his mood that morning. He was distant, distracted, as if his crown weighed twice as much. At the end of the council meeting, the Duke of Alvarado approached. "Majesty, the court is unsettled. They speak of a maid who bewitched you." Fernando turned slowly, his gaze cold. "Then let them speak, Duke. It will give them something new to gossip about." The Duke bowed. "Slander spreads fast, Your Majesty. The Church listens." "Then let the Church listen," the king said, already walking away. He returned to his chamber and found the sprig of rosemary still lying on the table. It had not dried, its scent was stubborn. He stared at it as if it held her face within its green leaves. Every word she had spoken still echoed in his mind. "You already have enough of nothing." He had not slept. He had not prayed. And though he told himself he was the master of Spain, he could not master the memory of a servant girl's voice. Inez returned to her work as if nothing had happened. She washed linen, carried water, scrubbed floors. The other maids, who once smiled kindly at her, now whispered behind their hands. Some called her lucky, others cursed her name. Lucia tried to defend her, but jealousy has no ears. By the second day, the gossip had reached every corner of the palace. When Inez walked through the courtyard, the guards looked twice. When she passed the kitchens, the cooks fell silent. Yet she kept her head high, her gaze calm. Inside she trembled. That afternoon, while hanging linen in the garden, she felt someone watching her. She turned. The king stood near the hedge, disguised in a plain cloak. Her breath caught. He should not have been there. "Majesty," she whispered, stepping back. "Be still," he said softly. "I am not here as your king." "Then you should not be here at all." He moved closer, careful that no servant might see. "I have tried to forget you, Inez Morales, but I cannot." "Forget me," she said quickly. "The court already has not." "I know of the whispers," he said. "They think you bewitched me. They think I have fallen under a spell." "Perhaps you have," she said. "The spell of guilt." He frowned. "You mock me. I tell truth, and truth does not serve your court well." He watched her hang the last piece of linen, the sunlight glinting off the wet fabric. "You have changed nothing in your ways. I would not trade honesty for safety," she said. He lowered his voice. "Then tell me what I must do. The more I forbid myself to think of you, the more I do. What did you leave behind that morning?" "Only a memory, Majesty. Let it fade." "I cannot." "Then that is your punishment," she said. "Mine is to live among whispers. We are both judged." He stepped closer. "Does my presence frighten you?" "No." "But it should." The sound of footsteps interrupted them. She turned sharply to hide her face. Two nobles passed, their eyes sharp. The king lifted his hood and stepped aside. When they were gone, he whispered, "Meet me tonight in the chapel after Vespers." "I cannot." "You can." She looked at him, weary. "If I go, will you listen and not command?" He nodded. "I swear it." That night, the chapel stood dark except for one candle burning before the Virgin statue. Inez entered quietly, her heart pounding. The king waited in the corner, dressed again in the same plain cloak. "You came," he said. "I came to speak, Majesty." "Nothing more." He gestured toward the altar. "Then speak." "You must end this," she said. "The court will not rest until it sees me ruined. The Queen Mother watches every step. The priests whisper of sin. And you give them reason to whisper." "I care nothing for their tongues," he said. "But you should," she replied. "You are king." He stepped closer. "I am also a man." "You are both," she said firmly. "And that is your trial." He looked at her for a long moment, then lowered his voice. "When I look at you, I see something I have not seen since I was young. I see truth, and it burns." "Then let it burn," she said. "It will cleanse you. You speak like a confessor." "I speak like a woman who wishes to survive." He smiled faintly, but there was sorrow in it. "You think me hopeless." "I think you are lost," she said. "And could you find me again? I could not even find myself if I walked this road." He reached for her hand, but she drew it back. "Majesty, the moment you touch me I am condemned." He froze. "Then I will not. For a moment they stood in silence. The candlelight trembled on their faces. Then he said, almost whispering, "You left rosemary on my pillow. Why?" "In my village," she said, "we leave rosemary for the dead. It means remembrance. And yet I live. For now," she said. "But not as you were." He looked down. "You speak as if I am already gone." "You are, Majesty." "The king you were died the night he met a maid and found she was not afraid." He let out a breath, half laugh, half sigh. "Then what stands before you now? A man who must choose which part of himself to bury." The sound of heavy doors echoed suddenly from the hall. The Queen Mother's voice carried from outside, sharp and commanding. "Search the chapel," she ordered. Fernando's face paled. "They cannot see you here." "Then go," Inez whispered. "Leave me. I will not abandon you. Then you will ruin us both." He hesitated, torn between pride and reason. At last he pulled the clasp of his cloak loose and threw it over her shoulders. "Hide behind the altar," he whispered. "Now." She obeyed just as the Queen Mother entered with 2 guards. Her voice was cold. "I was told you prayed here, my son." "I do," Fernando said evenly. "Must I seek permission to speak with God?" She moved closer, eyes narrowing. "You are restless these days. The court wonders why. Perhaps I am tired of their wondering. Or perhaps," she said, "you are haunted by a sin you refuse to name." His jaw tightened. "You think too much, Mother." "I think because I must. The church watches, Fernando. A king's virtue is not his own. They say a maid bewitched you. Is it true?" "No," he said, the lie steady on his tongue. Her eyes searched his. "Do not let weakness destroy what we built." When she finally left, the king waited until the sound of footsteps faded. Then he whispered, "Come out." Inez rose from behind the altar, the cloak still wrapped around her. "She knows. She suspects," he said. "There is a difference, for now." He looked at her with something close to desperation. "How long can truth hide before it turns to poison?" "Until someone drinks it," she said. "Let it stay sealed." He nodded slowly. "You are wiser than I, Inez Morales." "I am simply afraid," she said. "Fear can teach what pride cannot." He stepped closer once more. "I will not let them touch you." "You cannot protect what the world already condemns," she answered. He reached out but stopped himself again. "Then let them condemn me." She shook her head. "You are king. Your fall would crush the rest of us." He opened his mouth to speak, but the sound of voices outside grew louder, nobles gossiping as they passed. Their laughter echoed through the corridor. She turned to go. "Majesty, let this end." "I cannot end what has barely begun," he said. "Then you will suffer for it." "I already do." She stopped at the doorway. "Forget me." "I will try," he said, though both knew he would fail. When she left the chapel, the candle burned lower, its flame thin and trembling. By the next morning, the court was alive with new stories. Some claimed the king had argued with his mother. Others swore they saw a cloaked woman slipping from the royal wing. The bishops began to murmur. The Queen Mother sent a letter to Rome. In the laundry halls, Inez worked in silence. Every glance felt like a blade. The air was thick with accusation. When she reached for the basket of linen, she found it already folded neatly, with the royal seal pressed into the corner. She froze, her heart quickening. Inside the linen lay a single piece of parchment. It bore one line, written in the king's hand. It read, "Come to me once more. The night owes us its truth." Night fell over the palace like a secret no one dared to speak. The corridors were empty, the guards drowsy by their posts, the moon cutting pale lines through the stone arches. Inez moved like a shadow, her steps silent, her heart steady, though her hands trembled. She carried the parchment in her sleeve. The king's handwriting burned into her memory. The night owes us its truth. She had told herself she would not go. That enough had been said, enough endured. Yet as darkness deepened, something stronger than fear led her feet toward the royal wing. She passed through the service stairwell, the same one she had used as a child to carry bread to the upper kitchens. Every step felt heavier than the last. When she reached the antechamber, she found it unguarded. Only one candle flickered on the table. The silence was complete until a voice spoke from the shadows. "I was not certain you would come." The king stepped forward, cloaked again in plain garments, his face pale from sleepless nights. "I told myself I would not," she said quietly. "And yet I am here." He moved closer. "Because you knew I would wait. Because I could not let the court invent more lies," she said. "Let this be the last meeting between us." He studied her face, the stubborn calm in her eyes. "If this must be the last, then speak without fear. I will not command you tonight." "Then listen," she said. "You hold a kingdom, Majesty, but it holds you tighter. You cannot bend truth to your will forever. The court already whispers of heresy. The Queen Mother plots. The church questions your soul. You risk everything for a servant's defiance." He gave a tired smile. "And yet here I stand, risking still." "You stand on a blade," she said. "One step more and it will cut you." He turned away, pacing slowly before the hearth. "Do you think I care for crowns and councils when every face in this palace lies to me? When the only one who speaks truth is condemned for it?" She hesitated. "I did not come to comfort you, Majesty. I came to end this." "Then end it," he said, turning back to her. "Say the word, and I will let you go. Do not tempt me." "Why?" he asked. "Because you pity me still?" "Because I remember you still," she whispered. The words silenced him. For a long moment, neither spoke. The crackle of the fire sounded like breath between them. "You left rosemary on my pillow," he said softly. "I thought it meant farewell." "It did. Then why do I smell it every time I breathe?" She met his gaze. "Because guilt does not fade with the scent." He smiled faintly, almost in surrender. "Then let me confess, Inez, you were right that night. I am lonely. I have been all my life. My throne is a tomb built by my own pride. But when you looked at me, I felt seen, truly seen, and it frightened me." "You confuse truth with love, Majesty," she said gently. "Perhaps they are the same," he murmured. "No," she said. "Truth frees. Love binds. You want both, and neither can live in a cage." He moved closer until the warmth of the fire lit his face. "Then free me. Tell me what I must do." "You must learn to listen to silence," she said. "To rule not through fear, but through faith." He shook his head. "Faith does not keep men loyal. It keeps them human," she replied. For a moment he only watched her. "You speak as if you have lived 100 years. "I have lived in service," she said. "That is age enough." The door creaked suddenly. They both turned. A shadow crossed the threshold. The Duke of Alvarado, his eyes widening when he saw them together. "Majesty," the Duke stammered. "Forgive me, I thought—" The king's voice was sharp. "You saw nothing." The Duke bowed quickly, but his face betrayed fear and triumph both. "Of course, Your Majesty." When the door closed, Inez said quietly, "He will not keep silence." "I will see that he does," Fernando said. "You cannot bribe whispers. They breed faster than gold." He rubbed his forehead. "If they speak, let them. I am tired of living in shadows." "Then they will drag you into light," she said, "and light burns when it is not your own." He looked at her as though the truth hurt more than betrayal. "You would have me let them destroy you. I would have you let them see me as I am. I have done no wrong." "Nor have I." "Then why do we hide?" He fell silent. The truth was plain, and it hung between them heavier than the crown itself. Outside, the bells began to toll the late hour. She took a step back. "You should not be seen with me again, and if I refuse, then the Queen Mother will see to it that I am gone," she said simply. "I would not allow it." "You could not stop her." "Not without war within your own house." His voice dropped low. "Then I will fight my house." She shook her head. "You cannot fight your blood, Majesty. You can only outlive it." He reached for her hand before she could pull away. "Inez, if the world were not what it is, if I were not king and you not servant, would you stay?" She hesitated. "If the world were not what it is, you would not need to ask." He released her slowly, his fingers reluctant to part. "Then I will make a world where you can answer differently." Before she could speak, footsteps echoed again from the hall, hurried, heavy, unsteady. The Queen Mother entered, flanked by 2 courtiers. Her eyes were hard as glass. "So the rumors were true," she said. "The king hides with a maid." "Mother," Fernando began, "you trespass." "I protect," she cut in, "from scandal, from shame, from ruin." She turned to Inez. And you, girl, what spell did you cast to turn a king into a fool? Inez met her gaze without bowing. None, your grace. Truth needs no spell. The Queen Mother's lips curled. Then truth will be your undoing. You are dismissed from service. Before sunrise, you will be gone from this palace. Enough, Fernando said sharply. You have no right. I have every right, she interrupted. Your crown rests on the church's blessing and you forget it. Keep her here, and Rome will hear of it by morning. The king's jaw tightened. Do not threaten me. I warn you, she said. Your father's sins cost him his crown. Do not follow his steps. Inez turned to him quietly. Majesty, let her do what she must. You cannot fight faith with fury. He looked at her in disbelief. You would have me surrender you to them? I would have you keep your throne, she said. I would rather lose it than lose you. The Queen Mother's eyes widened. Then you are already lost. The room went still. Fernando took a deep breath, his voice low but steady. You will not harm her. She is nothing, the Queen Mother hissed. A servant who thought herself equal. Inez lifted her head. No, your grace, only human. The Queen Mother motioned to her guards. Take her to the convent of Santa Lucia. Let the sisters remind her what humility is. Mother, the king's voice thundered. But the guards had already stepped forward. Inez did not resist. It is all right, she said softly. Let them take me. I am not afraid. He moved toward her, but the Queen Mother blocked his path. Do not make this harder, she said coldly. The court watches even now. Choose your crown or your ruin. The king's eyes burned with helpless fury. You shame me before my own blood. I save you from yourself, she replied. When Inez was led away, she turned once at the door. Their eyes met, hers calm, his stormed with grief. Remember what I told you, she said. Listen to silence. Then the door closed and she was gone. The Queen Mother faced him alone. You will thank me one day. He said nothing. Only when she had left did he move toward the fire, gripping the back of the chair until his knuckles whitened. Don Esteban, his old attendant, entered quietly after some time. Majesty, he said softly, they have taken her. I know. They say to the convent. By dawn. The king turned to him. Bring me parchment. I will write to her. Esteban hesitated. If the Queen Mother... Do as I say, Fernando said. The servant obeyed, leaving a quill and wax on the table. The king sat, his hand shaking as he wrote a single line. He sealed it quickly and gave it to Esteban. Have this placed in her cell by morning, no one must see. What shall I tell her it is? Esteban asked. The king's eyes were hollow. A confession, he said. He sat long after the door closed, staring at the candle's dying flame. When it went out, the darkness that filled the room was not from the night. It was from within him. Far across the city, the bells of Santa Lucia began to toll, their sound soft but merciless. Inez, locked within the stone walls of her new cell, heard them too. She looked down and saw a folded note slipped beneath the door. She opened it, her heart trembling as her eyes read the words written in his hand. It said, I cannot rule without seeing your face again. The convent of Santa Lucia stood on the edge of Madrid, built of grey stone and silence. Its walls swallowed every sound that reached them. For Inez, days passed without colour or measure. The sisters spoke little, prayed much, and treated her as one who needed cleansing. She obeyed, but her spirit did not bend. Each morning she washed the chapel floors and whispered the same prayer, that the king would forget her, and that she might forget him. The abbess was an old woman with eyes like polished glass. She called Inez to her cell one evening after Vespers. You are restless, she said. The world clings to you still. I have no world left, mother. Do not lie to a servant of God, the abbess said softly. A letter arrived for you. I read it first, as is my duty. It speaks of temptation. Inez's pulse quickened. Temptation? From a man who believes himself above repentance, the abbess said, holding the folded paper between two fingers. He calls himself king, but before the Lord he is nothing more than a sinner. You must burn this. Please, Inez whispered, reaching out. Let me read it once. The abbess studied her face. Do you wish to damn yourself, child? I wish to understand, she said. After a long pause, the abbess handed her the paper. One glance, then to the fire. Inez unfolded it, her breath shaking as she read the words she already knew. "I cannot rule without seeing your face again." She closed her eyes and held it for a heartbeat longer than she should have before dropping it into the flame. The parchment curled, blackened, and vanished. The abbess watched her closely. "You will confess this tomorrow. The world outside is poison, and you have breathed too much of it." "Yes, mother," Inez said, though her heart beat against the words. That night she could not sleep. The wind moaned through the stone cracks, carrying echoes of distant bells. She thought of the king, alone, surrounded by flatterers and liars, wearing his pride like armor. She prayed for him, not as monarch, but as man, yet each time she closed her eyes, she saw the words again. "I cannot rule without seeing your face again." Far across the city, Fernando sat in his chamber, staring at an untouched letter from Rome. His council had gathered that morning, urging him to act before the church acted first. The Duke of Alvarado had returned, whispering poison into his mother's ear. "They will question your fitness to rule," he said. "They will call it blasphemy if you do not repent." The king had said nothing, but his silence was its own defiance. When the meeting ended, he sent for Don Esteban. "She received the letter." "Yes, Majesty, the abbess burned it, but not before she read it." "She read it?" The king's voice turned cold. "She is strict, sire. She meant to protect her order." "Protect," Fernando muttered bitterly. "She would cage a soul to keep it pure." Esteban hesitated. "There is talk, Majesty. The Inquisition has taken interest. If they reach Santa Lucia, she will be moved far from here, perhaps to Toledo." The king stood abruptly. "Then I will reach her first." "Majesty!" "Enough," Fernando said. "Bring me the seal. I will go as penitent, not ruler." That night, under cover of darkness, he left the palace in plain clothes. Only Esteban knew. The streets were cold and nearly empty as he rode through the narrow lanes. When he reached the convent gates, he dismounted and rang the bell. A young novice opened the small window. "The sisters sleep," she said softly. "Tell them a man comes to confess," he answered. The door opened after a pause. He entered, head bowed. The chapel was dimly lit by candles, the smell of incense heavy in the air. A wooden grille divided the confessional. He knelt. "Bless me, mother, for I have sinned," he said. The abbess's voice came through the screen. "Speak, my son. I have misused the power given to me. I sought to command what should be given freely." "That is the sin of pride," she said. "Have you repented?" "I do not know how." "Then you have not yet fallen far enough." He hesitated. "And if falling means finding the truth, truth does not come through desire." "I speak not of desire," he said quietly. "I speak of mercy." The abbess was silent a moment. "Mercy is for those who obey." He swallowed. "What of those who learn to listen?" Something in his tone unsettled her. "You have known her then?" she said sharply. "The girl. I know her courage," he said. "She is innocent." "Innocence ends when a king calls," the abbess said. "She refused me," he said quickly. "It is I who am guilty." The abbess's breath caught faintly. "Who are you?" He lifted his head, meeting her eyes through the lattice. "A man unworthy of the title he bears." The silence stretched, and then she understood. "Majesty, I came not as king," he said, "but as a soul seeking pardon." "You endanger us all," she whispered. "If the church discovers, then let them discover that I still have a conscience." Before she could reply, a bell rang at the gate. The abbess rose. "Someone comes. Stay here." He waited until the sound of her steps faded. Then he opened the confessional door and moved quietly toward the cloister. Through the narrow passage, faint candlelight glowed beneath one door. He knew it must be hers. He knocked once, softly. "Who is there?" her voice asked from within. "A penitent," he said. The door opened, and she froze when she saw him. "Majesty, what are you doing here?" "Finding what I lost," he said. "You cannot be here," she whispered. "If they find you, we are both ruined." "I no longer care for ruin," he said. "Do you not see, Inez? I have ruled half my life and never felt peace. Then you spoke truth to me, and I cannot forget it." She stepped back, shaking her head. "You came to a convent, to a holy place, to ask forgiveness," he said. "Not from God, but from you. There is nothing to forgive," she said. "You wronged yourself, not me." "I wronged us both," he said. "You told me to listen to silence." I have tried, but all I hear is your voice. She looked at him helplessly. Majesty, please, call me Fernando, he said. Just this once. Her eyes softened. Fernando, then. You must go. The church watches. They already suspect. I will not leave you here to be condemned for what you never did, he said. You cannot save me, she whispered. Perhaps not, he said, but I can stand beside you. Their words hung in the still air. The faint sound of footsteps echoed again beyond the corridor. Inez's eyes widened. They are coming. He turned toward the window, where the night wind pressed against the wooden frame. Is there a way out? There is an old door that leads to the orchard, she said. But it is locked from outside. Then we will break it. Before she could answer, the abbess's voice rang sharply in the hall. Open this door. Inez looked at him. Hide, please. He shook his head. I will not hide again. The door burst open. The abbess stood there with two sisters behind her, their faces pale with shock. Majesty, she whispered, horrified, you bring scandal to this house. Then let truth be scandal, he said. The abbess turned to Inez. You have brought sin to this convent. You will be sent away before dawn. The church has already ordered it. Inez gasped. Where? To a place where silence will cleanse you, the abbess said coldly. Fernando's voice rose. You will not take her anywhere. She belongs to the church now, the abbess said, and you, Majesty, belong to judgment. He stepped forward. No, she belongs to herself, and I to her truth. The abbess crossed herself. Blasphemy. It is humanity, he said. The tension crackled like thunder in the small cell. For a moment, no one moved. Then the abbess turned away. Guards are on their way. Leave this place, Majesty, before you destroy it. He looked at Inez one last time. Hold faith until I come for you. Do not come, she said. Promise me that. He smiled faintly. You know I cannot. The abbess's command echoed from the hall. Escort her to the tower until morning. Two sisters moved forward to take Inez. She did not resist. Her eyes found Fernando's one last time. Listen to silence, she said again, barely above a breath. When she was gone, the king stood motionless, the echo of her words circling him like wind. The abbess approached slowly. You have made your choice, Majesty. Pray it does not damn you. He turned toward the door. It will save me. Outside, the night had thickened into storm. He left the convent gates just as the first drops of rain fell, each one striking like memory. Behind him, the bells began to toll, calling the sisters to prayer. Inside her cell, Inez knelt by the window and whispered the words she could no longer write. Forgive him, Lord, for he will never forgive himself. The storm grew louder. Far away in the king's palace, a knock came at the royal chamber door. Don Esteban entered, soaked from the rain. Majesty, he said, his face pale, the Inquisition has sent riders. They know everything. Fernando's hand closed around the wet parchment still in his pocket. Then they will not find her here, he said. He turned toward the window where lightning flashed over the city, his voice low but firm. Before dawn, she will be free. The rain did not stop before dawn. It beat against the palace roofs like an impatient messenger, whispering through every corridor that something had broken loose in the night. The king did not sleep. He paced the chamber floor until the candles guttered out. When Don Esteban returned, dripping wet, the storm still howled outside. She will be transferred at noon, Majesty, Esteban said. To a convent in Toledo. The order came from the Archbishop himself. Fernando's voice was low. And the Queen Mother. She approves it. She says it is God's will. He looked toward the window where the grey light began to show. Then I will defy God's will. Esteban hesitated. Majesty, this is the church. To oppose them now would be a sin worth committing, the king said. Send riders. Bring me my cloak and a plain horse. I will not go as a king. Then how, sire? As a man who owes a debt. By the time the sun rose weakly over Madrid, Fernando was already on the road with Esteban and two trusted guards. The rain had turned the path to mud. They rode in silence, cloaks pulled tight. Every village they passed seemed smaller, poorer, more watchful. Word of his rebellion was already spreading, though no one yet dared speak his name aloud. At Santa Lucia, Inez was awake long before the sisters came for her. She sat near the window, hands folded tightly, eyes on the wet orchard below. The abbess entered without greeting. "You are to leave within the hour," she said. "Gather your things." "I have none," Inez replied. The abbess paused, studying her. "You were born stubborn, it seems." "I was born free," Inez said quietly. "I only forgot it for a while." The abbess frowned. "Freedom is pride in disguise. Then pride is all I have left." The older woman turned away. "The guards will escort you. Do not speak to them." When she left, Inez touched the rough wall beside her. The cold stone steadied her thoughts. She whispered a prayer not for herself, but for the king who had risked too much already. Outside, the storm softened into a grey drizzle. A carriage waited near the gate, 2 soldiers beside it. As she stepped inside, she did not look back. They travelled for hours along the narrow road toward Toledo. The driver spoke little, and the soldiers avoided her eyes. When they reached a small bridge near the edge of the forest, one of the men raised his hand for the driver to stop. "What is it?" the driver asked. "Someone's coming," the guard said. Through the mist, riders appeared, 3 of them, cloaked and silent. The first raised a hand, signaling peace. When they drew closer, the guard stiffened. The man at the front pulled back his hood. "Majesty," one of the soldiers gasped. Fernando's voice cut through the rain. "You will return to the convent and tell the abbess that the king has taken charge of her prisoner." The guards exchanged looks, torn between fear and duty. "Majesty, we cannot—" "You can and you will," Fernando said, his tone leaving no space for refusal. They hesitated only a moment longer before bowing their heads. "As you command." Inez stepped out of the carriage slowly. Her cloak was damp, her hair clinging to her face. When she saw him, she stopped as if unsure whether to weep or scold him. "Majesty," she whispered. He shook his head. "No titles. Not now." "What have you done?" "What I must," he said simply. "You are free." "Free?" She looked around at the empty road. "This is not freedom. It is flight." "Then we will flee until freedom finds us," he said. "Where will you go?" she asked. "North," he said. "To Aragon. My father's hunting lodge stands empty. No court, no priests. Only silence." She looked at him for a long time. "You would abandon your crown?" "I abandoned it the moment I saw you led away in chains." She shook her head slowly. "You will lose everything." "I have lost everything that mattered already," he said. "Now I would rather lose what does not." Don Esteban cleared his throat softly. "Majesty, the riders from Madrid will follow. We must leave before noon." Fernando turned to him. "Then let us ride." They mounted quickly and set off into the forest. The rain eased as they went, leaving behind only mist. Inez rode beside the king, silent but alert. She did not trust the quiet. It felt like a held breath. At midday they stopped by a stream to rest the horses. Esteban unpacked bread and dried fruit. Inez accepted a piece but did not eat. "Why do you look at me so?" the king asked. "Because I cannot tell whether you are brave or foolish," she said. "Perhaps both," he replied. "You defy your council, your church, your mother. For what?" "For truth," he said. She smiled faintly. "Truth cannot live in hiding." "Then let it rest for a while," he said. "Even truth needs sleep." The brief humor faded when they heard the distant sound of hooves. Esteban stood at once. "Majesty, they've found us." Fernando's eyes narrowed. "How many?" "4, maybe 5 riders. Not far." Inez turned to him. "You must go. They will not harm me now." "I will not leave you," he said. "If they see you, they will call it abduction. You will be hunted as traitor." He took her hand quickly. "And if I go, they will say you bewitched me. Either way, I am condemned." The sound of hooves grew nearer. Esteban moved toward the horses. "There's a path through the ravine. It leads toward the monastery of San Isidro. We can lose them there." "Lead the way," Fernando said. They rode fast, the forest blurring around them. The rain began again, hiding the noise of pursuit. Branches tore at their cloaks, and the path grew narrow and steep. Inez gripped the saddle, praying under her breath. At last, the road opened to a small clearing where an old chapel stood, half ruined and overgrown. Esteban dismounted. "We'll rest here." They won't search ruins in this storm. Inside, the chapel smelled of moss and dust. A faded cross hung above the altar. Inez sat on a broken pew, catching her breath. Fernando came to stand beside her. "Does this place frighten you?" "No," she said. "It feels like what the world has forgotten." He nodded slowly. "So do we." For a time, neither spoke. Then Inez said quietly, "You should return, Majesty, before the church makes your crown their prize." He looked at her. "Do you still think me king?" "You will always be to me what you were meant to be," she said. "Not because of the crown, but because of the weight you carry." He smiled faintly. "You speak as though you pity me again." "I do," she said, "because you still believe you can save me." "I do not wish to save you," he said, "only to stand beside you." The rain softened outside, and through the broken window the first light of afternoon touched the floor. It fell on her face, pale but calm. "Do you regret coming with me?" he asked. "I did not come with you," she said. "You found me. Then forgive me for it." "There is nothing to forgive," she replied, "but there is much to lose." He took a slow breath. "If loss is the price of peace, I will pay it." Before she could answer, Esteban rushed back inside. "Majesty, they're close." The riders split at the fork. "One group follows this way." Fernando looked at Inez. "We'll have to keep moving." She stood, pulling her cloak tight. "Then let's not wait for them to decide our fate." They left the chapel and mounted again. The horses struggled through the mud as thunder rolled above. Hours passed before they saw the distant lights of a village. Esteban pointed ahead. "There's an inn by the river. We can rest the horses and change clothes." The king nodded. "We'll stop there. Tonight we vanish." They rode in silence until they reached the inn. It was small, half hidden behind a mill. The keeper looked up as they entered but asked no questions. Gold silenced curiosity better than any lie. Upstairs, in the narrow room they were given, Inez stood by the window watching the river glint under the moon. Fernando joined her. "You will be safe beyond the border," he said. "Esteban knows the roads. He will take you to Aragon. There you'll be free." She turned to him slowly. "And you?" "I will return to Madrid." Her eyes widened. "You cannot." "I must," he said. "The council will destroy what remains of order. I cannot let the country fall for my heart's rebellion." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You risk your life to save me? And now you risk it again to undo it?" "I do what must be done," he said. "If I am to stand before God one day, I would rather stand having sinned for love than having ruled without mercy." A long silence followed. The sound of the river filled it. Then she said softly, "If you go back, they will take your crown." "Perhaps they should," he said. "Then let them take it for the right reason," she said. He looked at her in confusion. "What reason?" Before she could answer, Esteban knocked hurriedly at the door. "Majesty, they've tracked us here." "How?" the king asked. "The guards we spared. They must have told the Queen Mother." Fernando's hand closed around the window frame. "Then it ends tonight." He turned to Inez, his voice calm but unyielding. "When they come, do not speak. Say you were taken against your will." She shook her head fiercely. "I will not lie." "You must," he said. "It is the only way they'll let you live." The sound of hooves and shouts rose from outside. Esteban's face turned pale. "Majesty, they're here." Fernando looked once more at Inez, the rainlight glinting in his eyes. "Then we face them together," he said. The shouts outside grew louder. The heavy knock on the inn's wooden door shook the walls. Esteban rushed to bar it, but the hinges were old, the wood swollen from rain. "Majesty," he whispered, "there are too many. We cannot fight." Fernando's hand went to the sword he no longer wore. "Then we will not fight," he said. "We will speak." Inez caught his arm. "They will not listen. They come with orders, not ears." He met her gaze. "Then I will give them new orders." The door below splintered. Boots thundered up the stairs. Esteban stepped in front of his king, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Majesty, let me speak first. Let them think I acted alone." "No," Fernando said. "They will smell lies." The door burst open. Rain blew in from the corridor. 5 soldiers stood there, their armor wet and shining. Behind them, a man in dark robes entered, Father Rodrigo, an envoy of the Inquisition. His face was pale, his eyes sharp. "Majesty," the priest said, bowing with calculated grace, "the Queen Mother feared for your safety. Imagine our relief to find you alive." Fernando's tone was calm. "Your concern moves me deeply, Father." You arrive armed for a rescue? We arrive to uphold God's order, Rodrigo said. The maid beside you has been declared under investigation for heresy and sedition. You will release her to the custody of the Holy Office. She is under my protection, Fernando replied. The priest's expression did not change. Your protection cannot shield her from the judgment of heaven. It can shield her from the hypocrisy of men, Fernando said sharply. The soldiers shifted uneasily. Esteban whispered, Majesty, please. Rodrigo's tone hardened. Do not mistake mercy for weakness, sire. The people murmur, Rome listens. If you persist in defying the church, your throne will tremble. The throne has trembled since the day men like you learned to use God as a weapon, Fernando said. A murmur rippled among the soldiers. Rodrigo's eyes narrowed. You forget yourself, Majesty. No, Fernando said. For the first time, I remember. He turned to Inez. Go with them for now. Do not speak. I will come for you before the sun sets again. She shook her head. If I go now, I will not return. You will, he said firmly. I swear it. The priest motioned to the guards. Take her. The men stepped forward. Inez did not resist, but her voice was calm as she said, Your chains are lighter than your blindness. Rodrigo ignored her. You will thank me, Majesty, when this shadow has passed. Go, Fernando said, and pray that I never see your shadow again. They led her down the stairs, her steps silent against the wood. When the door closed behind them, the room seemed to lose its air. Esteban spoke first. Majesty, you cannot follow them now. They ride to the city. The Inquisition's men will surround her. Then I will go before them, Fernando said. I will face my council. Your council will betray you to Rome. Let them, Fernando said. It is time to drag their masks into light. He left the inn before dawn. By the time the sun broke through the clouds, the road behind him was slick and shining. Madrid waited like a wound reopening. When he entered the palace, the guards stepped aside without question. The Queen Mother was already waiting in the Hall of Mirrors, surrounded by advisers and priests. So the prodigal returns, she said coldly. With what tale now, my son? Fernando faced her without bowing. I return with truth. The girl you condemn has done no wrong. I will not let her be burned for my mother's vanity or Rome's pride. The Queen Mother's eyes flashed. You dare speak of pride? You disgrace your blood, your kingdom, your God. I disgrace only the silence that has ruled this court for too long, he said. Father Rodrigo stepped forward. Majesty, the matter is no longer personal. The church demands accountability. The church will have it, Fernando said. From me, not from her. The Queen Mother's voice cut through the hall. You would sacrifice your crown for a servant. I would save my soul from being ruled by men who claim to serve God while serving themselves, he said. The council erupted in whispers. Rodrigo raised a hand. Then you confess to heresy. I confess to humanity, Fernando said. Is that your crime now? The Queen Mother stood. Enough! You speak like a madman. The kingdom will not survive your weakness. He turned to her quietly. Then let the kingdom fall, and from its ashes perhaps a nation with conscience will rise. A silence followed. The courtiers exchanged frightened glances. No one dared move. At last, the Duke of Alvarado cleared his throat. Majesty, if you mean to stand against the Holy Office, the council must act. We beg you to reconsider. I have considered, Fernando said. I will go to the tribunal myself and speak in her defense. You cannot, the Queen Mother said. They will call it blasphemy. Then let them, he replied. Blasphemy spoken in truth is holier than silence whispered in fear. He left the hall before she could answer. Esteban met him outside with a look of dread. Majesty, the tribunal convenes at midday. They say the girl has already been brought before them. Then we ride, Fernando said. The plaza of San Bartolome was crowded when they arrived. Rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of it. A wooden platform stood in the center, the symbols of the Inquisition painted above. Inez knelt there, her wrists bound loosely, her eyes calm. The priests read the charges: disobedience, corruption of royal virtue, defiance of holy authority. The words blurred into noise until the king's voice broke through. Enough! The crowd turned as he strode forward, the guards too shocked to stop him. This tribunal has no power over her. I, Fernando de Aragon, stand as witness to her innocence. The presiding bishop raised his hand. "Majesty, you cannot interfere in the holy court." "I can and I will," he said, "for she stands accused of what I commanded." The murmurs swelled. The Queen Mother arrived behind him, her face white with fury. "Fernando, stop this madness." He ignored her. Inés Morales spoke truth to her king. She bowed to no false idol, not even mine. If this is sin, then may every soul be guilty with her. Rodrigo stepped forward, voice trembling with controlled anger. "You blaspheme before God himself." "I speak before men who pretend to be him," Fernando said. "You call her witch because she defied power. I call her saint because she taught it mercy." The bishop struck his staff against the platform. "This is treason." "Then let treason save the just," Fernando said. For a heartbeat, the entire square stood frozen. Then, from the edge of the crowd, a man shouted, "Long live the king!" Another joined, and another, until the square roared with voices. The guards hesitated, looking from the people to the priests. The Queen Mother's voice rose above the chaos. "Fernando, you will destroy us all." He turned to her. "Calm now." "No, Mother. I will free us." He cut the ropes that bound Inez's wrists. She stood, unshaken, her eyes on him. "You should not have come," she whispered. "I could not stay away," he said. The priests tried to shout over the noise, but the crowd pressed closer. The bishop called for silence, but none came. Esteban pushed through the soldiers. "Majesty, we must go. The city is turning. They will send for the archbishop's guard." Fernando took Inez's hand. "Then we go now." They slipped through the crowd as confusion spread. People reached out to touch their garments, blessing them or cursing them, no one sure which. The bells began to ring wildly, calling the faithful, or warning them. By the time they reached the edge of the square, horses waited, brought by Esteban. The king lifted Inez to the saddle and mounted beside her. Behind them, the Queen Mother's voice echoed faintly through the din. "You will answer for this, my son. You will lose everything." Fernando looked back only once. "Then let it be lost." They galloped through the narrow streets, the sound of pursuit already rising. Esteban followed close behind. At the city gates, a guard moved to block them. Fernando shouted, "By order of the king, open!" The man hesitated, then lifted the bar. They rode through just as soldiers poured into the street behind them. Beyond the walls, the fields stretched wide and wet under the storm's last clouds. Inez held the reins tightly, her breath quick, her heart heavier than the horse's hooves striking the earth. "Where now?" she called. Fernando looked ahead. "To the north, to Aragon. Freedom lies beyond the mountains. And if they follow, then we will keep riding," he said. She turned her face toward the wind. "How long can we run from a kingdom?" "Until it remembers mercy," he answered. Behind them, the bells of Madrid clanged in furious rhythm, calling the nation to judgment. Before dusk, thunder rolled again in the distance. Esteban spurred his horse beside them. "Majesty," he said breathlessly, "a patrol rides from the royal road. They bear the Queen Mother's banner." Fernando's eyes hardened. "Then they will have to catch their king first." The wind tore through the open plains as they rode north. The horses' hooves struck the soaked ground with heavy rhythm, flinging mud against the cloaks of the three riders. The storm had passed, but the sky remained bruised with clouds, and the air smelled of iron and smoke. Behind them, the faint toll of Madrid's bells faded into distance. Don Esteban rode ahead, scanning the horizon. "Majesty," he called, "they are gaining." "The royal patrol rides fast." Fernando tightened his grip on the reins. "Then we ride faster." Inez clung to the saddle, her hands white with strain. The cloak that covered her was soaked through, but her voice did not tremble when she spoke. "You cannot outrun your own army, Fernando. You must stop this." "I will not give you back to them," he said. "It is not me they hunt anymore," she said quietly. "It is you." He turned toward her briefly, rain glinting from his hair. "Then they will find a man, not a king." Ahead, the forest of Jarama loomed, a tangle of dark branches and fog. Esteban looked back. "If we reach the woods, we can lose them. Beyond lies the road to Aragon." "Go," Fernando said. They entered the trees at full gallop. The forest swallowed them whole, its wet silence broken only by the sound of hooves and breath. The light dimmed, the air grew colder. Inez glanced over her shoulder, and saw the glint of armor through the mist. "They're close," she said. Esteban turned sharply to the left. "This way, there's an old hunting trail." The path narrowed between tall pines. Branches struck their faces. The horses slipped on wet leaves. Somewhere behind them, a trumpet sounded, a call of pursuit. "Faster!" Fernando shouted. They burst through a thicket and reached a small clearing where a stream crossed the path. The horses hesitated at the slippery rocks. Esteban looked back, breathing hard. "We can't cross here. The water's too high." "Then we make a stand," Fernando said. Inez shook her head. "No, you promised no fighting." "I promised you freedom," he said. "It will cost something." The sound of approaching riders grew louder. Esteban dismounted. "Majesty, take my horse and go. I'll hold them off long enough for you to cross." Fernando dismounted as well. "You will not die for me, old friend." "I swore to serve," Esteban said. "Let me serve once more." The first riders appeared through the trees, 6 soldiers bearing the Queen Mother's banner. Inez stepped between Fernando and Esteban. "There's another way," she said quickly. "Follow the stream east. It bends toward the road that leads to the monastery of San Isidro. The monks there will hide us. Go, both of you." Esteban glanced at her. "How do you know this?" "I was sent once to bring linen there. I remember the way." Fernando hesitated only a moment. "Show us." They mounted again and turned east, following the stream. The noise of pursuit faded behind them for a time. The forest grew denser, the ground uneven. When the trees finally broke, they found themselves at the edge of a wide plain, dotted with olive groves. Esteban pulled his horse to a stop. "There," he said, pointing to the faint outline of stone towers in the distance. "San Isidro." But as they started again, a horn echoed from the west. More riders, faster this time. Inez looked over her shoulder and saw the glint of sunlight on steel. "They've split their forces," she said. Esteban's voice hardened. "We'll never reach the monastery in time." Fernando turned to her. "Can you trust me?" She met his eyes. "I have since the night you ordered me to be your wife." He gave a faint, grim smile. "Then hold on." He spurred his horse off the road, toward a narrow ravine that cut through the hill. The others followed. The ground sloped sharply downward, forcing them to slow. Water trickled between the rocks, slick and cold. Esteban called out, "Majesty, this path leads to nowhere." "It leads to hiding," Fernando said. They reached a shallow cave near the ravine's base, half hidden by tangled vines. Fernando dismounted and helped Inez down. "We'll wait here until nightfall," he said. Esteban tied the horses behind the brush. "If they track us here, then we surrender," Fernando said. "But not before." Inez sat against the stone wall, her breath uneven. "You cannot keep running forever." He crouched beside her. "If I stop now, they win. My mother, the council, the church, they will turn truth into heresy and call it justice." "Truth doesn't need a crown," she said softly. "It needs peace." He looked at her for a long moment. "And if peace means losing everything, then let it go," she whispered. The air in the cave grew colder. Esteban kept watch near the entrance, peering through the rain that began to fall again. Hours passed. At last, the distant sound of horses faded completely. "We may have lost them," Esteban said quietly. Fernando nodded. "We'll rest here tonight. Tomorrow we reach the monastery." Inez leaned her head against the wall. "And after that?" "After that," he said, "I will decide what kind of man I wish to be." She closed her eyes. "Not a king, perhaps not," he said softly. When she slept, he remained awake, listening to the wind and to the slow breathing beside him. In the dim light, he saw how exhaustion had softened her defiance. He wondered what it would cost the world to let her go free, and what it would cost his soul not to. By dawn, the rain had stopped. Esteban roused them quietly. "Majesty, we must move before the next patrol." They mounted again, weary but determined. As they rode toward the hills, the clouds broke, and sunlight spilled across the fields. The monastery appeared ahead, perched on the cliffs like a promise of safety. But before they reached the gates, a trumpet call echoed once more. This time, it came from the north. Fernando looked back. "They found our trail." Esteban urged his horse forward. "Ride, Majesty." They reached the monastery's gate as the first riders appeared on the ridge. Fernando struck the heavy doors with his fist. "Open, in the name of the king," After a moment, the great wooden doors creaked open, and a tall monk stepped out. His grey robe was soaked at the hem, his face calm. "What brings you here, my lord?" "Sanctuary," Fernando said. "For us all." The monk's gaze moved to Inez. "And for her?" "For the truest soul I have known," Fernando said. The monk nodded once. "Enter quickly." They passed through just as the soldiers reached the courtyard outside. The monk closed the doors and drew the bolts. From the shadows of the cloister, more brothers appeared, silent and watchful. The king dismounted and turned to Esteban. "Rest the horses. I will speak with the abbot." The monk who had opened the door gestured toward a small chapel. "He waits there." Inside, the abbot was praying. When he rose, his eyes met the king's without surprise. "You bring turmoil to our door, Majesty." "I bring truth," Fernando said. "The world seldom distinguishes between them," the abbot said. "You seek refuge from your own court." "From my own blood," Fernando said, "and from men who use God's name to silence conscience." The abbot sighed. "The church will not forgive you." "I ask not forgiveness," Fernando said, "only time." "Time is mercy," the abbot said, "and mercy is fragile." Fernando bowed his head. "Then lend me what little you can spare." The abbot studied him for a moment, then nodded. "You may stay until the storm beyond these walls has chosen its path. But know this, if the Queen Mother demands you, I cannot deny her sanctuary either." Fernando understood. "You will do what faith requires. I will do what love demands." When he left the chapel, Inez was waiting in the cloister. "They will come," she said. "I know," he replied. "What will you do when they do?" "Tell the truth," he said. She smiled sadly. "You still think truth can change kings?" "I think it can change one man," he said. Esteban appeared at the gate. "Majesty, riders approach from the valley." Fernando turned to the abbot. "You promised sanctuary." The abbot's expression was grave. "And you have it. But peace does not stop the world at our doors." Outside, the sound of hooves thundered closer. A voice shouted for the gates to open. Inez took a slow breath. "They've come again." Fernando's hand went to the rosary at his belt, the one she had once left him. "Then we will face them," he said quietly, "and see who remembers what mercy means." The abbot's voice carried through the courtyard, calm but firm. "Open the gates. The law may enter, but blood will not be spilled on holy ground." The brothers moved to obey. Inez stood beside the king beneath the cloister arches, her hands clasped tight. "You must not resist them," she whispered. "The church has long memory and little mercy." Fernando looked at her, weary but resolute. "Then let them remember this moment. The day a king bowed to his conscience, not to fear." When the gates opened, a small procession entered. Soldiers rode ahead, their armor dulled by rain. Behind them came a carriage marked with the seal of the Queen Mother. At its side, cloaked in black, rode Father Rodrigo. He dismounted first, his face expressionless. "Majesty," he said, his voice echoing under the stone vaults, "your mother awaits your surrender. She begs you not to shame your house further." Fernando did not move. "And does she beg you to remind me of God as well, Father?" Rodrigo's lips curved faintly. "God needs no reminder. He sees all, even rebellion dressed as virtue." The abbot stepped forward. "This is consecrated ground. No man is prisoner here, unless he wishes to be." Rodrigo turned his sharp gaze on him. "Then perhaps you should remind your brothers that harboring fugitives of the crown is not piety, but defiance." "The crown has found its voice," Fernando said quietly, "and it will not speak through fear again." The priest drew a letter from his sleeve and handed it to the abbot. "A decree signed by the Queen Regent. It demands the release of both the king and the woman who led him to sin." Inez's breath caught, but she held her head high. "I led no one to sin." Rodrigo's eyes flicked to her. "Your tongue remains sharp. It will serve you little when you stand before the tribunal." "Then let truth be my only weapon," she said. The king stepped forward. "You will not touch her again, Father." "Majesty," Rodrigo said smoothly, "you stand before men of faith, not your subjects. The law of God stands above all thrones." "Then God's law must tremble," Fernando replied, "because it has forgotten mercy." The abbot raised his hand. "Enough. Words in anger dishonor us all." Rodrigo looked at him, then back to the king. "Majesty, The council meets at sundown to judge your reign. Return to Madrid, and perhaps they will show leniency. Leniency, Fernando repeated with a faint smile. I have ruled by it and been condemned for it. Now I will rule by truth, even if it costs me the crown. Rodrigo bowed slightly. Then the crown will fall before night. When he turned to leave, the Queen Mother's voice rose from the carriage door. Fernando. The soldiers stepped aside as she descended, her black veil heavy with rain. She looked older than he remembered, her face carved by worry and pride. My son, she said softly. Come home. I am home, he said, where faith still has meaning. Her voice trembled with fury and fear. Do you think love can survive without rule? That a kingdom can stand on sentiment? No kingdom stands on fear, he said. You would throw away an empire for a maid, she asked. For a soul that reminded me I have one, he said. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Then you are no longer my son. He bowed his head. Perhaps not, but I remain your lesson. She turned from him and entered the carriage again. When the council meets tonight, Spain will have a new king. Pray that God shows more mercy than you have. The carriage door closed, and the procession withdrew, leaving silence behind. The soldiers followed, but Rodrigo lingered at the gate. Majesty, he said quietly, a man who trades his crown for love often finds he has kept neither. Fernando met his gaze. And a man who trades mercy for power finds he has lost both. Rodrigo gave no answer. He mounted his horse and rode away. The gates closed. The courtyard was still. The brothers returned to their prayers. Only Inés and Fernando remained beneath the dripping arches. You cannot stay here forever, she said. No, he admitted, but I can choose how to leave. Esteban joined them, his face drawn but steady. Majesty, the Queen Mother means what she said. By nightfall the throne will pass to your brother. Then Spain will have a king who fears more than he believes, Fernando said. Esteban hesitated. What will you do? Return to Madrid, Fernando said quietly. One last time. Inés caught his hand. No. You have given them all you can. They will destroy you. He looked down at their joined hands, then at her face. They already have. What remains is only to forgive them for it. The abbot approached, his robe whispering against the stone. If you go, Majesty, you go as man, not sovereign. The court will strip you of title and crown. Then they will strip nothing I have not already lost, Fernando said. The abbot nodded slowly. Then may peace guide your steps. Before noon, Fernando prepared to depart. He exchanged few words, speaking mostly through glances. When he turned to Inés, her eyes were bright but steady. You taught me what no counsel could, he said. That love asks not to be obeyed, only understood. And you taught me, she said softly, that even kings can learn to listen. He took her hand once more. When this is over, seek me in Aragon. If I live, I will find you. If I do not, remember me kindly. You think I could forget? He smiled faintly. You did once. I left you, she said. I never forgot. Esteban mounted and looked to the horizon. Majesty, the road is clear. We should go before dusk. Fernando nodded. Goodbye, Inés. She watched as they rode from the monastery gates until their figures vanished into the fields. Then she turned away, whispering a prayer he would never hear. Hours passed. The abbot came to her quietly as the bells marked the 9th hour. My daughter, word has reached us. The council convenes even now. Whatever he does, his heart is with you. She looked toward the distant city where faint thunder rolled, and mine with him. In Madrid, the palace was already crowded when Fernando entered. The guards did not bow. The throne room gleamed with golden shadow. The Queen Mother sat near the dais. The council gathered around her. Beside her stood his younger brother, Don Rafael, pale and silent. Fernando walked forward until he stood before them all. Majesty no longer suits me, he said. Call me only Fernando. The Queen Mother rose. You come to witness your own fall? I come to claim it, he said. A murmur swept through the room. Rodrigo stepped forward, scroll in hand. The council finds you unfit to rule. Your compassion has weakened the crown. Your defiance endangered the realm. Do you deny it? I deny nothing, Fernando said, for I have done all you accuse me of, and more. I have listened to truth when it spoke from the mouth of a servant. I have learned that rule without mercy is tyranny, and if that makes me unfit to wear a crown, then perhaps Spain deserves better than a king." The Queen Mother's voice broke through the silence. "And what of the girl? What of her sins?" "Her only sin," he said, "was honesty." The council erupted in whispers again, but Fernando raised his hand. "You may strip me of my crown, but not of my conscience. I will leave this palace tonight, and I will not return." Raphael stepped forward hesitantly. "Brother, what will become of you?" Fernando smiled faintly. "I will be free." The Queen Mother turned away, tears in her eyes. "Then go. Spain has no place for madmen who mistake passion for faith." He bowed once, the gesture deep and deliberate. "And faith has no place for those who mistake fear for virtue." He walked out through the hall as the courtiers parted like reeds before him. No one spoke. The sound of his footsteps echoed until it faded beyond the doors. Outside, the evening light had softened. Esteban waited with the horses. "Majesty." "Not that word," Fernando said. "Not any more." Esteban bowed his head. "Then forgive me, Fernando. Where now?" "To where mercy still breathes," he said. "To Aragon." As they rode away, the bells of Madrid began to ring once more, not in warning, but in mourning. At the monastery, Inez heard them faintly on the wind. The sound carried over the hills like a memory half-lived. She knelt in the chapel, hands folded, lips barely moving. "Let him live as man, not king. Let peace be his crown." The abbot entered quietly behind her. "Child, a messenger has come from the city. The council has spoken. Fernando de Aragon has abdicated." She looked up slowly. "Then Spain has lost a king." The abbot nodded. "And gained a man." Her eyes filled but did not break. "Then let him come home." Outside, the horizon glowed faintly with the first stars. Somewhere far beyond them, a rider crossed the dark plains toward freedom. And in the stillness that followed, the wind carried the scent of rosemary through the cloister air. The first snows came early that year. They fell softly over the mountains of Aragon, blanketing the valley in quiet. The roads that once led to war and courts now led to stillness and wind. In a small village at the foothills, the people spoke of a man who had arrived months before, a stranger with weary eyes, a calm voice, and hands that worked the soil like one born to it. They called him Señor Fernando, though no one knew his true name. He lived in a cottage near the stream, where smoke rose each morning from the chimney, and the sound of tools filled the air until dusk. The children liked him, for he mended their toys and told them stories of faraway lands. The elders respected him, for he bowed his head at every greeting and paid his dues without pride. Only the priest suspected who he was, yet said nothing. One evening, as the sun sank red over the valley, Fernando stood outside his cottage, looking at the path that curved between the hills. He had watched that path every day for 3 months, waiting for something that might never come. Esteban had gone south to tend his family's land. The abbot had sent word that Inez was safe, and yet the silence hurt more than any battle. He had lived as king. Now he lived as man. And yet his heart had not learned to forget. The snow deepened. He went inside, lit the fire, and sat by the window. The rosemary sprig lay on the table, dried now, its color faded but its scent still sharp. He touched it gently. "If you still live," he murmured, "find me. I have no crown left to offer, only myself." Outside, the wind rose. Then faintly the sound of hooves broke the stillness. He froze, listening. The sound drew closer, slow, uncertain, as if the rider feared to believe the road had an end. He stood, heart pounding, and went to the door. Through the snow a figure appeared, small, cloaked and trembling from cold. When she drew back the hood, his breath caught. "Inez," he whispered. She swayed in the saddle, her face pale from the journey, her eyes bright with tears and laughter both. "I thought I would never find this valley," she said. "They said you had gone east, then north, then vanished. I followed only the rumor that you still waited." He moved forward and caught her as she slid from the horse. "You came." "I said I would," she said, her voice shaking. "You told me to find you in Aragon. I am late." "You are eternal," he said. "Come inside." He led her into the warmth, her hands cold as snow against his. She looked around the small cottage, the simple table, the books, the tools. "So this is where the king hides," she said softly. "The king died in Madrid," he said. "Only a man lives here." She smiled faintly. "Then I have no reason to curtsy." He laughed for the first time in months. "You never did." They sat by the fire, the light flickering between them. He poured her wine and she drank slowly, her gaze never leaving him. "You look different," she said. "Older, perhaps, but freer." "And you," he said, "look the same as the night I lost you." "I was not lost," she said. "I was waiting for you to find yourself." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Did you forgive me?" "There was nothing to forgive," she said. "You listened to truth. You gave up everything for it." He shook his head. "No, I gave up everything for you." Her fingers tightened around his. "Then you gave it for love, and that is no loss." For a long time they said nothing. The fire crackled, the snow pressed against the window, and the world seemed to fall away. At last he rose and went to the window. "When I left Madrid, I thought I had failed. I believed love had destroyed my crown. But now I see it saved my soul." She joined him quietly. "The people speak your name with sorrow and pride. They say you were the king who chose compassion over power. I would rather be the man who chose you," he said. Her breath caught and she turned to him. "And what of your kingdom?" He smiled. "It is here." He touched her heart lightly. "It was always here." They stood together, the silence between them full of warmth. Then he said, "Stay." Her eyes lifted to his. "Do you ask as a king or as a man?" "As neither," he said. "As one who cannot live another day without your voice in this house." She smiled through tears. "Then I will stay." The days that followed passed gently. Inez tended the small garden and mended the cottage curtains. Fernando worked the fields, spoke to the villagers, and each evening returned to her laughter. They shared little, simple things: bread, stories, quiet. It was a peace neither had known before. One morning, as spring crept down from the mountains, Fernando found her by the stream washing linen. The wind caught her hair, and he thought she looked like the first morning after creation, untouched, unburdened. "Inez," he said softly. She turned. "You should not sneak up on me, Fernando. The neighbors already gossip." "Let them," he said. "They will gossip louder soon." She raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" He knelt in the grass beside her, his hands trembling slightly. "Because they will see a man kneel for something greater than any crown." She stared at him, stunned. "Fernando." "I have no ring," he said, "only a promise. Will you be my wife, not for a night, but for all the days that remain to us?" Tears blurred her eyes. "You need no ring," she whispered. "You already wear my heart." He smiled, relief breaking through his voice. "Then say it." "I will," she said, laughing through tears. "I will." He pulled her close, and she rested her forehead against his. The world seemed to hold its breath. That evening they went to the small chapel in the village. The priest who had once guessed Fernando's secret said nothing, only looked at them with quiet understanding. The ceremony was simple. A few villagers stood as witnesses, and Esteban, who had returned from the south, watched with pride. When the priest asked for their vows, Fernando took her hands. "Once I ordered you to be my wife for a night," he said softly. "Now I ask you to be my wife for a lifetime." "And I defied you then," she said, smiling. "But this time I obey with joy." The priest blessed them, and the villagers cheered. Someone played a small lute, and the children scattered petals on the ground. Fernando kissed her hand, then her forehead, and whispered, "Now I am truly crowned." They left the chapel hand in hand, the evening air sweet with spring. The fields shone gold under the fading sun. That night they sat outside the cottage watching the stars appear. Fernando held her close, her head resting on his shoulder. "Do you ever think of Madrid?" he asked. "Sometimes," she said, "but not with sorrow. The palace was built for pride. This house is built for love." He smiled. "Then this is our kingdom." "It is," she said, "and may it never need a throne." He looked at her, his gaze tender. "Do you ever wish I had kept the crown?" She shook her head. "A crown without peace is a chain. You broke yours for me. That is the truest gift a man can give." He kissed her hair. "Then let it be our secret that a kingdom once fell for love." "Not fell," she said gently. "It was reborn." In the months that followed, their lives grew into rhythm. They rose with the sun, worked side by side and spoke often of the people they had left behind. The maids of the palace, the guards who had shown kindness, even the Queen Mother, who had not written but had sent a single message through Esteban. Live well. When the harvest came, the valley filled with laughter. The villagers invited Fernando and Inés to the feast. He tried to decline, but they insisted. You are one of us now, they said. No titles, no secrets. That night, under the lantern strung between the trees, Inés danced with the children while Fernando watched, his heart full. The music rose, and she reached for him. Come, she said. I cannot dance, he said, smiling. Then learn, she said. You once ruled Spain. Surely you can follow a rhythm. He laughed and joined her. They moved clumsily at first, then easily, the way two hearts move when they no longer care who watches. The villagers clapped and cheered. The moon rose high, and for the first time Fernando forgot what it meant to be anything but happy. Later, when the crowd drifted away and only the fire remained, Inés leaned against him. Do you ever wonder what history will say of us? Nothing, he said. And that is enough. Perhaps they will say, she mused, that once there was a king who learned to kneel and a maid who taught him how. Then history will finally tell the truth, he said. Years passed, and peace endured. The cottage grew surrounded by gardens, the walls warm with laughter. Travelers who passed through spoke of a couple who lived by the river, a man with the dignity of a ruler and a woman whose kindness was legend. One evening, long after the world had stopped asking questions, Fernando stood outside as the sun set over the hills. Inés joined him, a basket of herbs in her hands. You still watch the horizon, she said. I wait for nothing now, he replied, only to thank the day as it goes. She placed a sprig of fresh rosemary on the table beside him. For remembrance, she said. He smiled. For love. They stood together as the light faded, their hands entwined, the air filled with the scent of earth and rain and the faint sweetness of rosemary. The years had taken their crowns, their titles, and their fears, but left them with something far greater, peace earned, love tested, and a life built on truth. Inés looked up at him and whispered, You once commanded me to be your wife for a night. He laughed softly. And you disobeyed me as always. She smiled. Then I will disobey you again. I will be your wife for every night that remains. He kissed her then, gently, with the kind of tenderness that needed no promise, no throne, no witness, only the two of them, and the endless quiet that followed. The stars came out one by one, watching as they stood together in the doorway of their small cottage, two souls who had walked through fire and found peace in its ashes. And when the wind moved through the valley that night, carrying the scent of rosemary and rain, it was said that Spain itself breathed easier, as if the heart of its lost king still beat somewhere in the hills, free, forgiven, and forever in love. Thank you so much for listening to this story all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.